He's a legendary American newscaster who has covered some of the most important historical events of our time. And he's now the author of Steady, newsletter steps on Substack, and a prominent presence on social media. He's here with his grandson, who is co-founder of the Rather Prize and a passionate advocate for the equity in Texas education. And they are joined by Kevin Foster, a professor and the associate chair of African and African Diaspora studies at the University of Texas, who is here to help present the Rather Prize to this year's winner. Thank you guys for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
I gotta say, I am a longtime fan. You make me just a little bit fangirly nervous.
Well, I'm honored by that. Thank you very much.
So for those who are unfamiliar with the Rather Prize, can you tell me about the award and what was the genesis for this?
Sure. The Rather Prize is a $10,000 prize for the best idea to improve education in the state of Texas. It's open to teachers, administrators, staff, students, anyone learning in or working in a Texas educational institution. We've now been doing this for the better part of a decade. I think this is our 6th or 7th year. And it's been a really wonderful experience to get to just encourage people actually on the ground to innovate and think critically about how we can improve Texas schools. And we're glad to be here back at South by Southwest EDU to announce this year's winner.
I think it needs to be said that we have no illusions. This is not a huge prize. We're not capable of putting together much more than we have, but my wife Jean and I are both products of Texas public schools and feel so strongly, both of us are native Texans, but we feel so strongly about the importance of education. We know from our own experience growing up and now reaching, well, I'm 91, I won't tell you how old she is, but nonetheless, that education is the heart of our society. And anything we can do to forward it, we want to try. And Martin, about the time he turned 18, he's 25, soon to be 26. When he turned about 18, his grandmother, my wife, was talking to him about how you give back. Because we know we're very lucky and mightily blessed people. And she wanted Martin to start thinking about how he could give back. And somewhat to my surprise, I must say, I don't underestimate it, but he came right back fairly soon and said we should try to do something to help Texas education. So that's the background. And kind of the spirit of it is that so often decisions about schools are made by people who haven't been in schools in a long time. Mm-hmm. They're politicians or bureaucrats or important people, but good people. It's all top down. So our idea was, let's try something from the bottom up, from people who are either teachers or students in schools today, and get some ideas from people from the bottom up. So that's how it came to be and the spirit of it. And we're very glad to be here today, and we appreciate your time.
So how important is bringing the stakeholders in to come up with this?
I think it's essential to what we're trying to do. As my grandfather said, it's really, who's in the school every single day? Who's out there, kind of facing both, I guess, gaining the benefits, when we do things well, but also paying the costs when we don't. And so for us, the stakeholders that we thought, needed their voices elevated as much as we could do with our own small award, again, were those teachers, the staff, the students in there each and every day. And they've come up with some really good ideas, and we have another one again this year.
Well, I want to emphasize that we don't make the decision about who wins. Dr. Kevin Foster and his associates at the University of Texas handle the competition and make the decisions. But we're always glad to do it, and we're always glad that when South by Southwest EDU gives us a little time to talk about it. Our friend Ron Reed is always generous with time and making opportunities available, and we're very appreciative of it.
So I'm tempted to ask you about this year's winner, but I know you guys are announcing it later. So maybe instead you can tell me about some of the submissions you've received and what kind of ideas are coming up right now.
So over, education, there's some aspects of it that are timeless and always the same, and then we're always living in a new context, right? So we're coming out of COVID, we're coming out of a quarantine, we're in a moment where we're beginning to acknowledge, or the public is beginning to acknowledge just how challenging it is to be a teacher, to be an administrator, to be working in these beautiful sites, but also sites that, they're challenging. So we see that in many of the applications. We see applications for folks thinking about how do you support novice teachers so that they grow into the profession and want to stay in the profession as lifelong teachers. We've seen a lot of applications that engage outdoor learning. So last year's prize was about community gardens, where the school and the folks on site had linked with local community organizations to be taking the kids outside and engaging lessons through something that benefited the community. In this case, it was a food desert. So we have places around Texas where there's not grocery stores everywhere, and where there might be a lack of fresh produce and those sorts of things. And here they had found a way to simultaneously provide an education to students, have those students live into making a difference through their learning. Others have been about mentoring. It kind of goes on and on over the last several years. Wonderful ideas. And to Mr. Rather's point, the whole idea is to lift those up and let the rest of the state and the nation see these great ideas, support those ideas as they are in context, but then maybe see them grow and get planted elsewhere as well.
Well, Dan, when you travel, you are looking at schools across the country. What gives you hope? And is there anything that gives you concern?
I'm sorry, what did I hope?
When you travel and you see what's going on with the schools, what gives you hope and what gives you concern?
Well, my hope is that every man, woman, and child of memory age in the country will see and act on the fact that we need to take a sort of ground zero look at our education system. We need an education system for the 21st century. I read something the other day that 2/3 of the students in 4th grade cannot read at 4th grade level. This is unacceptable. It's also dangerous for us. So my hope is that people would take a deep breath and say, what can I do to help that? And there are plenty of things you can do as an individual. If the second part of the question is, what do I fear? I fear we won't act on it, and we'll pay the price for that.
I mean, you have a grandson who is of the next generation, so I'm glad that you've had the foresight to pay it forward and create the Rather Prize.
Well, as I say, it's a small thing we can do. I don't know that I emphasize, and I should emphasize, that the Rather Prize each year is open to teachers, students, anyone connected with a school. While I'm a product of public schools, my wife is a product of public schools, and we believe strongly in the mission of public schools. In terms of the Rather Prize, it doesn't have to be from a public school. For example, I'm not tipping our hand here, but this year's winner is from a charter school.
Oh, interesting.
So, religious schools, private schools of all kinds, even homeschool people, we're convinced have their ideas that can help us leap forward, which we need to leap forward. Again, my personal opinion is if we don't do it, as a country, as a community, as you will, as a state of Texas, we're going to be in great trouble going along. But I'm an optimist by nature and by experience. We'll get it together.
Okay, I give you this magic wand. I want you to solve one problem today in education. What would it be?
Pay teachers better.
Yes, I love that. I wish we could pay teachers better. That has been definitely a constant topic here. So how can we do better as a country, keeping education out of the political fray and focusing more on areas of commonality that's actually going to best help the kids?
Well, for myself, one thing we can do is start teaching civics. So often civics has been dropped out of the curriculum in elementary, middle schools, what used to be called junior high schools and high schools. And so going forward, we have to, as part of our let's do something about education, educate people about civics, how laws get passed, how school boards operate, how they really operate as opposed to how they might appear to operate. Understand the workings of the democratic system down at the grassroots level so you can begin to change things. If you don't raise people and help them understand how this country works, how it really works, and how they can contribute, then I would be pessimistic. But remember, I said I'm optimistic.
Yes. As a mother, I am constantly surprised that she hasn't taken it in school yet. And I looked, and they're just not teaching civics.
I'd offer that one of the things that we can be doing is actually leaning into and having a little more faith in our teachers, our assistant principals, our principals, and the work that they do. There's so much, and it all comes from love, but there's an impulse to fix the thing that's going on when often, I dare say, some of the things that are said to be going on aren't. This horrible thing's happening, that horrible thing's happening. Those are kind of political phantoms that have been injected in, and they kind of rob teachers, in the worst instances, of the time to just go and do the things that they're really good at doing. The things that are rumored to be going on in schools pretty much aren't. And what's going on is the 5-year-olds are learning to tie their shoes. The next grade is learning, their ABCs. Like the things that we want to have happen, that's what our teachers are all about. That's why teachers get into it in the first place. And they're well-trained and sharp and know how to get it done. So I would love to see, to Mr. Rather's point and to Mark, the more support for teachers. It comes in pay. It comes in instructional time. It comes in a sort of autonomy to actually teach. And less, I don't want to say meddling, that sounds so value-laden, but less meddling. Mm-hmm. Create space for our best to be their best.
I will say that South by Southwest EDU has grown into a real force for reform, education reform. I can remember when the very first South by Southwest EDU happened, and it followed through the years with my friend Ron Reed, who helps us every year. And what has grown up out of something very small is a worldwide influence on better education. That for those who don't know it, that South by Southwest EDU is dedicated to, trying to foster change, to inspire it, help it along, and succeed in making things better. And who would have thought from the small beginning that they would grow into an international force for education good?
Well, Martin, you also plan to highlight the Rather Prize implementation plan today. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so we're committed not only to identifying the best ideas, but also to implementing them. And we're really proud, when you go back, I think it was about 5 years ago, we had an idea, in Austin at Eastside Memorial High School that, they're still doing parts of to this day, which is amazing to see. And so, of course, it's always dependent on, what the winning idea is, and we're excited to reveal that very shortly here. But it's really important to us that we not just say, hey, here's this idea. We want other schools to model themselves off of the winning ideas, and we want people, again, to be aware of it and to just continue to think critically. And we hope, as kind of the years go on, that we just build and build on all these great ideas, and, kind of little by little, schools are able to take parts of what they see, in these innovative proposals and put them into their classrooms. What's
the criteria for deciding a winner?
So we've kind of developed a rubric over time where we look at things like how innovative it is. So is it kind of a new idea? We look at whether it's tenable, like can it be implemented? We look at can it be scaled? Is it something that can be done at other places as well? And then we go kind of into some details around, problem clarity and, It gets pretty deep. It's about 10 points deep. The judges are my team at the university, folks I've worked with for years and years, and then we have past winners come back and be part of the judging as well. And one thing I'd add to this, to go with what Martin's saying about, kind of shining a light. If you go to ratherprize.org, what you see is a crisp 7 to 8 minute video of the winner, so that there's this kind of living repository of information. And not only is the information there, but it's accessible, it's really nicely produced, and it's something that simultaneously the home community can say, look at this, what we've done. It's a point of celebration, but then it's also something that everyone else gets to see as well. So I love the idea of people going, and we track it, people going to ratherprize.org and looking at the 2022 winner, the 2021 winner, all the way back.
So there's a Rather Prize community.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. I love that you said that. That's exactly the case. The winners stay in community. The winners stay talking to each other, and we don't let them go. We call them back in and say, "Will you judge?" And they say, every year they say, "Absolutely."
So Dan, despite all the threats to America, both internal and external, you remain bullish about this country. What makes you the most optimistic about the future?
Young people. I know some people say, oh, come on, that's a cliche answer. But it's become a cliche answer because it's so true. When I see the young people coming up, I frequently work with young people and have for a very long time. Let's face it, at my age and stage, much of the time I have another journey on my mind, the journey into eternity. But I'm still working. And when I see these young people coming up, I say to myself, we're going to be all right. The country's going to be all right. We'll go through some difficult times, but our history as a country is that we have a lot of faults. We still have a lot of faults. But America is a new thing in history because it's an ideal and an ideal. And with an ideal, it's an unreachable star, but something always to be striving for, to strive for a more perfect union. And when I see young people and work with young people these days, I say to myself, yeah, I have my days of worry and fears. I was raised by people who taught me not to fear anything except God and hurricanes. But there are a lot of things to fear. But I find myself going down those dark paths. I come back to every time I see young people doing something really good for their community and helping one another, I say to myself, we're going to be okay.
Is that what made you get so interested in social media? Because it gives you such a connection to the next generation. I mean, exactly. I feel like a whole generation of kids only knows you from like Twitter. They didn't even know you were a newscaster.
That's very true. You've hit on a very, important point for me, is that I was aware that, there are all kinds of people who never heard of CBS or Dan Rather for that matter, but particularly young people. And so you say to yourself, how can you connect? You say, well, you have to go where they are. The Indians used to say you have to go where the buffalo are. If you want to reach young people, talk to young people, have any interconnection with young people, you have to go where they are, and where they are is social media.
So you've received numerous career achievement awards in the past couple of years. As you look back over your career and its impact, what makes you the most proud?
My family makes me most proud.
Clearly.
I have a wonderful wife, 2 children, 2 wonderful grandchildren. And work is important. And I love to work. I have no apology. I've always loved to work. But in the end, what's important are those, as your family, your friends, close relationships, your country and your faith. The idea that some work that you've done is going to last much past you, I think, is an illusion except for a very few people.
Well, your work seems like heart's work, all of you guys. So I really appreciate you stopping by the studio.
Well, thank you for having us here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dan, Kevin, Martin, it's been an honor to have you all here in the studio. You can check out our daily schedule of interviews on our website at schedule.sxswedu.com. And you can watch all of our studio interviews on the South by Southwest EDU TV app and on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/@SXSW EDU. I'm your host, Kari Byron. Please stay tuned from the South by Southwest EDU studio.